Hey, soldiers, finally, someone in Washington, D.C. is coming to the rescue of the average American. Someone, a senator in this case, has recognized that we need help, and he is bound and determined to help us. Or is he? Is he actually more concerned with helping himself? Well, Senator Josh Hawley, he is saying that, you know what, credit card interest rates are too high, and he wants to do something about that. So let's get into it and talk about this. Remember, when we're dealing with a politician, all that glitters ain't gold. You know that when politicians start to, talk, you got to take everything they say with a grain of salt. Now, this is the problem with many Americans. They just, some presidential candidate could come out here and say, and I'm going to make sure that I create more jobs, all right? And a large portion of the electorate will just glom onto that, not asking themselves any critical questions like, can a president create jobs? Okay. Do I want this president creating government jobs? Because that will push my taxes up. What about the legislative process? Where does that come into play? He's not a king, right? So there's a lack of understanding with regard to how the economy works and how the legislative process works, especially in certain communities. Here's Kamala Harris. This is what she thinks is an effective campaign strategy for one particular demographic.
And even though we both fly, give each other space and not the evil eye, acting like grown-ups.
Okay, look, when presidential candidates go, let's just talk Turkey. When presidential candidates go and they talk to constituencies that are predominantly Jewish, they talk to those individuals about the relationship with Israel and how they will continue to foster that relationship and that sort of thing. Okay, that's one of the priorities in that community. They'll also talk with them about certain economic issues, economic growth issues. The Asian community, they want to hear again about economic issues. They are becoming much more politically active in the country. And when I say Asian, I'm including Indians in that as well, okay, from the continent. Hispanics, of course, the Latino community, they want you to come to them, and they want to hear about immigration policy, one way or the other, okay? They want to hear about small business growth, all right? Things that are economically pertinent to that community. The white constituency, they also are very concerned about economic issues and different types of domestic issues. And so is a large portion of the black community. However, if we are honest with ourselves, Bill Clinton played the saxophone on the Arsenio Hall show. And too often it is displays like this that tend to move a portion of the black electorate, okay? Emotional displays. You remember Hillary Clinton got up in front of a black church. I don't feel no ways tarred. She put on this black affectation, which is extremely offensive. Ask yourself, would she go to an Asian church? Would she go to a Korean church and do that? Okay? No, she wouldn't. Okay, she wouldn't go to an Indian religious institution and do anything like that. Hispanic, okay? But they continue to do stuff like that because the parishioners don't get up and walk out once they start that offensive behavior. So this whole thing I'm trying to paint to you is politicians do certain things just to get your vote. And this particular move by Hawley might be in that category. He's saying that the interest rates are too high on the credit cards. Now, I'm sure we can agree with him on that. And he wants to cap credit card interest rates at 18%. Do we really want the government setting those kinds of caps? With socialism, the textbook definition is when government starts to appropriate private property. These credit card companies are private property, all right, of the investors that hold shares in the company. Josh Hawley doesn't have the authority to do this. Josh Hawley plans to introduce legislation that would set an 18% cap on credit card interest rates. The Republican denounced soaring interest rates, which hit an average above 24% in September, according to Investopedia, as credit card debt levels surpassed $1 trillion. Now, is there something else that can be done? Is there some other initiative that Hawley could advance that would be more effective than this, which will not pass, by the way? Okay, there's no way that the credit card lobby is going to allow that the banking lobby is going to allow you to basically cap their profits, okay? Americans are being crushed under the weight of record credit card debt, the Missouri Republican told the news site Real Clear Politics. The Missouri senator said it was time for the government to serve, quote, working people, unquote, just as it came to the aid of faltering banks earlier this year, including Silicon Valley Bank and Signature Bank of New York. If you want to practice true capitalism, then there are going to be some losers. If you bet big, then you might lose big, okay? The government was quick to bail out the banks just this spring, but has ignored working people struggling to get ahead, Hawley told Real Clear Politics. Hawley said that capping credit card rates was a fair and common sense way to give the working class a chance. Listen, let's just take this guy at his word. Let's say he's being absolutely altruistic, right? If you do that, one of the responses the credit card companies and the banks will have is to start restricting credit, okay? And that can hurt the middle class. Now, I know that there's a constituency out there that says you shouldn't use credit cards. You shouldn't have any credit cards. Dave Ramsey says you shouldn't have credit cards, okay? Now, yeah, maybe if you're undisciplined, you shouldn't. However, Dave Ramsey's network is built on leveraging debt, okay? So he wouldn't even be on that network. He wouldn't have the expansive business that he has were it not for credit. Now, I will say that he is expert at being able to handle credit, disciplined in it. If you're not disciplined, maybe you shouldn't have a credit card. But wouldn't you like to have the choice? Okay, we are adults here. And as adults, if we spend frivolously, then we may get into some trouble with credit. And I know because of inflation and because of wages and the gap between the two, there are a lot of people out there who have to resort to credit to eat. Okay, that's where we are these days. Now, something else Hawley could do is push education around the use of credit. Okay, that's one thing. Also, the tax policy. Why don't you enter a bill that lowers the income tax? Why don't you do some tax reduction legislation? That would be great, okay, and put money back into the pockets of the average American. Legislation on lowering the gas tax, okay, how about that? Something that the populace could get behind and maybe would have an opportunity to pass. APR is determined by the credit card issuer, which examines the customer's credit score. In the United States, banks and credit unions issue credit cards. Chase, American Express, Citigroup, Capital One, and Bank of America are among the largest issuers of credit cards in the country. A spokesperson for the American Bankers Association, the lobby representing the nation's lenders, told the Post, New York Post, quote, price controls don't work, and the mischaracterization of deposit insurance coverage, which banks themselves pay for, doesn't justify this type of harmful government intervention. This proposal would harm consumers by restricting access to credit for those who need it the most and driving them toward less regulated, more costly alternatives. What are some of those costly alternatives? Well, high interest loans, okay, payday loans, things like that. Hawley's proposal basically would make it such that having a credit card, that would be reserved for pretty much those with higher incomes, okay, and the wealthy only. Hawley's proposal closely mirrors those which have been suggested by progressive lawmakers, including Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez and Senator Bernie Sanders. In 2019, Ocasio-Cortez and Sanders introduced the Loan Shark Prevention Act, which sought to cap credit card APR at 15%. Don't you gotta love the way they name these, right? Who can vote against cracking down on loan sharks, right? Well, the truth of the matter is Citibank Visa is not going to send a 300-pound enforcer to beat the money out of you. So let's get real with that. Now, in terms of why he's doing this, we took him at his word. Now let's look at the more potentially nefarious side of this. Josh Hawley's going up for re-election in 2024. He's got one particular gentleman who is challenging him, former Marine Lucas Kuntz. These guys, the senators, serve 6 years at a time. He's up for re-election, and he's making news, right? He's making positive news. Now, we evaluate these things with a fine-tooth comb, but how much you want to bet a lot of his constituents out there in Missouri with high credit card debt are looking at this and saying, that's my man, Josh Hawley. Oh, he's got my vote, okay? Do you think that most of his constituents that are happy about that proposal are then reading statements from the bankers lobby? Okay, all right. So dealing with credit can be dicey. Okay, we always warn people here on the channel to be very careful when using credit, but to also remember that credit and debt are very powerful and very useful economic tools if used correctly. It's just like a hammer. You can take it and you can, engage in destructive behavior with it, or you can build a house with it. Okay, guys, I want you to check out this particular video. Americans are drowning. Why? Well, we just talked about credit card debt. Well, Americans are drowning because Bidenomics is devastating the working class. Find out how and find out what you can do about it. Guys, I'll talk to you soon.